Husband invited his ex-wife to the gala, to humiliate her, unaware of her ownership of the company. He believed the gala would crown his legacy, a night of lights, power and laughter, at the expense of the woman he once discarded. To him, she was nothing more than a closed chapter, a scar he thought would never resurface. As the music softened and the spotlight burned bright, Marcus Bennett leaned toward his ex-wife and whispered words dipped in poison. "You don't belong in this room. Tonight, everyone will see you for what you are. Worthless, small, forgotten. I'll rise above you, and the world will cheer while you drown." Those cruel words, sharp as glass, pierced through the noise of clinking glasses and polite applause. He wanted to strip her dignity, to bury her completely under ridicule. But Marcus did not know, his arrogance blinded him, that the very empire he bragged about, the company he claimed as his crown jewel, was no longer his. The woman he sought to humiliate, his ex-wife, Sophia Bennett, was now the hidden owner of the business that made him proud. In her calm hands rested the truth that would dismantle his pride and crush his power. Sometimes the silence you mock is the very silence that prepares your downfall. This is the story of Sophia Bennett, the faithful wife turned betrayed victim, the ex-wife turned silent shadow, and the quiet storm who would one day rise not with bitterness, but with undeniable power. Before we begin, please subscribe to this channel. It helps us to tell stories of betrayal, resilience, and justice with the world. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and how this story touched you. The grand banquet hall shimmered with crystal chandeliers, the hum of polite laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Powerful men in tailored suits and women in glittering gowns filled the space. At the head table stood Marcus Bennett, Sophia's ex-husband, his voice echoing with pride as he raised a glass of champagne. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced, his smile sharpened with arrogance, "tonight we don't just celebrate business success. Tonight we celebrate victory over weakness, over dead weight, over mistakes of the past." The crowd chuckled. Heads turned. His eyes locked on Sophia, seated quietly near the back. Her black gown caught the light, but her face remained calm, unreadable. Marcus's mistress, Victoria Hayes, once Sophia's closest friend, leaned toward him, whispering with venom that carried across the table. "Look at her, sitting alone like a ghost. You've buried her tonight, Marcus. She has nothing left." Marcus smirked, the corners of his lips twisting. "Exactly as it should be," he muttered. Sophia's gaze lifted, steady, meeting theirs across the room. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. Her stillness was unsettling, like the quiet before a storm. The master of ceremonies called Marcus to the stage. With calculated pride, he stepped forward, adjusting his cufflinks. His voice boomed through the microphone. "We rise by cutting away the ones who hold us back. I am proof of that. Success comes not from loyalty to the past, but from courage to walk away." The audience laughed again, clapping in approval. Cameras flashed. The humiliation was meant to burn Sophia alive in silence. But Sophia did not bow. She folded her hands on the table, her posture upright. In her clutch lay sealed documents, her hidden weapon, her silent truth. As Marcus raised his glass once more, the applause thundered. Yet in that very moment, Sophia allowed the faintest smile to cross her lips. Not joy, not surrender. Just the quiet foreshadow of justice. Marcus basked in the spotlight, unaware that the very company he boasted of controlling already belonged to the ex-wife he had tried to destroy. The sound of boiling water hissed from the kettle, filling the tense silence of the Bennett kitchen. This was before the gala, when their marriage still carried the appearance of life. Sophia stood by the counter, clutching her phone. The screen glowed with the image she had just received. Marcus, her husband, caught in an embrace with Victoria, her supposed best friend. Her fingers trembled, but her voice was steady. "Tell me this isn't true, Marcus. Tell me the woman in your arms isn't Victoria. The woman who's been at my side for years." Marcus, dressed in a crisp shirt, didn't flinch. Instead, he poured himself a glass of wine, swirling it with calm arrogance. "Sophia, you've always been too sensitive. That picture doesn't change anything. What we have, it's business. It's survival. Don't twist it into more." Sophia's voice cracked, but her words pressed forward. Business? That's my best friend. That's betrayal. Do you even hear yourself? He set the glass down hard, the sound like a gavel striking judgment. Listen to me, he snapped. You've always been too soft. I need a partner who sharpens me, not one who drags me down with emotions and loyalty. Victoria understands ambition. You never did. Her heart shattered, but she refused to break in front of him. So you're choosing her? Over me? Over everything we built together? Marcus leaned closer, his tone low and cutting. I'm not choosing, Sophia. I've already chosen. You just didn't see it until now. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. The kettle clicked off, but neither moved. Sophia's hand lowered, her phone screen dimming, but the image remained burned into her mind. Her marriage collapsing in a single cruel revelation. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed quickly. The name Victoria glowed on the screen as he walked out, leaving Sophia alone in the kitchen with nothing but betrayal echoing in her ears. The night was heavy with silence. Sophia sat curled on the edge of her bed, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Her eyes were red, not from weakness but from the storm inside her. She scrolled through her contacts until her finger hovered over one name, Daniel, her stepbrother, the one who had promised long ago that he would always protect her. The call rang. Once. Twice. Finally, his voice came through, casual, almost careless. Sophia, what's wrong? It's late. Her voice broke, but she forced it steady. Daniel, I need you. Marcus, he's been with Victoria. I saw the proof. He's leaving me. You know what this means. I have nothing left but you. For a moment there was silence. She thought he was processing her words, preparing to take her side. Then he sighed. Sophia, Marcus already spoke to me. He told me everything. He said you were holding him back, that you're unstable. And honestly, maybe he's right. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. You're siding with him? My own brother? Daniel's voice grew sharper. He's the future, Sophia. He's building an empire. You... He hesitated, then continued coldly. You're sinking. Why should I chain myself to you when I could rise with him? Sophia's breath caught. Betrayal cut deeper from family than from any friend. So you'll abandon me too? After everything? A pause. Then Daniel spoke the words that shattered her last hope. Don't call me again. This is bigger than family. It's survival. The line went dead. The faint hum of silence filled the room. Sophia stared at the phone in disbelief, her hands trembling. The house was silent, too silent. Once it had been filled with warmth, laughter over dinner, quiet music in the evenings, whispered promises of forever. Now it was hollow, an echo chamber of loss. Sophia sat alone on the living room floor, the clock ticking relentlessly on the wall, every second mocking her abandonment. Her hands clutched an old photo frame. Her wedding day with Marcus. She studied the smiles frozen in time, the promise that had crumbled into betrayal. The longer she stared, the more the shadows around her seemed to whisper, You are nothing. You are alone. Tears slid down her cheeks, but she didn't sob. Her grief was quiet, contained, like fires smoldering beneath ash. She remembered her stepbrother's cold words. Don't call me again. This is survival. She remembered Marcus's sneer at the press conference and Victoria's poisonous laugh. The weight of betrayal pressed so heavy that the room itself felt like it was collapsing on her. Sophia's phone buzzed. Messages lit the screen. Mocking headlines, photos of Marcus and Victoria smiling before the cameras. Each one was a dagger, each caption a reminder that she had been left behind. For a moment, despair nearly won. She thought of disappearing, of surrendering to the silence that had swallowed her home. But then her eyes fell on another frame. This one of her parents. Their faces radiated strength, the same strength they had once whispered into her heart. Never let darkness decide your worth. Sophia wiped her tears. Her breath steadied. No, she whispered into the empty house. This is not my end. They may have abandoned me, but I won't abandon myself. The ticking clock kept on, but its sound no longer mocked her. It became a rhythm, a reminder. Every second was another chance to rise. Just as she pushed the photo frames aside, her phone buzzed again. This time not a headline, but an email. Subject line, job opening, assistant needed at Mason & Co. A small door of survival cracked open in the darkness. The office smelled of dust and old paper, paint peeled from the walls, and a single flickering bulb cast tired light over crooked desks. It was far from the glittering halls Marcus boasted in, but to Sophia this place was a lifeline. Mason & Co., a small, struggling accounting firm, had given her a seat when no one else would. Her first day began with a challenge. Mr. Mason, the weary owner, dropped a thick stack of account books onto her desk. "You said you're good with numbers," he muttered, raising a skeptical brow. "Prove it. These figures have been off for months." "Everyone before you failed." Sophia adjusted her glasses and nodded. "Give me until tonight." Her colleagues snickered from their desks. One whispered loudly, "She's desperate. Bet she won't last a week." Another laughed, "She doesn't even look like she belongs here." Sophia ignored them. Hours passed, her hands scribbling, her eyes scanning every page. Mistakes leapt out at her, patterns others had overlooked. She whispered softly as she worked, "You thought I was weak. Let me show you strength." By evening, her desk was covered in corrected sheets, neat columns of figures balanced perfectly. Mr. Mason returned, expecting failure. Instead, she slid the corrected ledgers toward him. "Here are your missing funds. And here's the fraud you didn't notice. Page 47. He froze, flipping through the pages, his eyes widening. You caught this?" Sophia straightened, her voice calm. "Yes, and if you give me a chance, I can turn these books clean in less than a month." The whispers in the office stopped. The same people who mocked her now stared in disbelief. Mr. Mason exhaled sharply, tapping the ledger with his finger. "Fine. You've earned tomorrow. But understand this. If you're right, you're not just an assistant. You're the future of this firm." The old office block stood like a skeleton, windows shattered, walls scarred by years of neglect. Most people saw it as a ruin, a place ready to be torn down. But when Sophia stood before it, she saw something else. Possibility. Beside her, Mr. Mason crossed his arms. "We can't afford to fix this," he said bluntly. "The board wants to sell it off for scraps. It's too far gone." Sophia shook her head, determination flashing in her eyes. "No, this can be rebuilt. This is not waste, it's potential. Give me the reins and I'll prove it." The workers nearby exchanged doubtful looks. One scoffed. "A woman like her? What does she know about sites like this?" Another laughed. "She'll quit by tomorrow." Sophia ignored the murmurs. She rolled up her sleeves, walked inside the crumbling shell, and began sketching out a plan on her notepad. She saw what they couldn't. The way broken beams could be replaced. The way light could pour through new windows. The way a derelict block could be reborn as a thriving workspace. Days turned into weeks. Sophia arrived first and left last, meeting suppliers, negotiating costs, encouraging workers with a firmness that surprised them all. Slowly, the site began to change. Dust gave way to fresh paint. Cracked floors were smoothed, and the skeleton of the building found new life. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Mr. Mason walked through the site, stunned at the progress. He found Sophia sitting on a stack of timber, sipping from a bottle of water. She looked exhausted but triumphant. "You were right," Mason admitted, his voice tinged with pride. "I underestimated you. This place. You've breathed life into it. You've breathed life into all of us." Sophia smiled faintly. "It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving to myself that I was never broken." A courier arrived suddenly, handing her a thick envelope. Inside were legal documents, an unexpected investment proposal from a group of businessmen who had quietly been watching her progress. The polished oak boardroom table stretched wide, surrounded by skeptical faces. Investors who once dismissed Sophia as a forgotten ex-wife now sat upright, their eyes scanning the thick folder she had placed before them. The sound of pages flipping was the only noise in the room. One older man cleared his throat. "Mrs. Bennet, or should I say Ms. Bennet now," he began cautiously. "These numbers are impressive. But tell us, how did you turn a crumbling office block into profit in less than 6 months?" Sophia met his gaze without hesitation. I stopped seeing ruins, I saw opportunities. Where others saw loss, I saw foundation. And I built on it. That's what I'll do for your company." The room shifted. Men who had once smirked at her name now leaned forward, curious. One whispered to another, "She speaks with precision and confidence." Mr. Mason, seated at her side, tapped the documents. "She's the reason Mason & Co. is standing today. She saved us." "She can save you." Still one skeptic tried to jab. "But you're Marcus Bennett's ex-wife. Surely that makes you compromised?" Sophia's lips curved faintly, not in anger but in calm defiance. "No, that makes me experienced. I know what arrogance costs. I know how betrayal looks when it's dressed as leadership. And I will never let that destroy another company under my care." The silence was heavy. Then slowly, one by one, the board members nodded. Pens were drawn. Contracts were signed. For the first time, Sophia wasn't just surviving. She was being recognized. Not as Marcus's shadow, not as a victim, but as a leader with her own vision. As the last signature dried on the page, one investor leaned forward with a warning. "This deal makes you powerful, Ms. Bennett. But beware, Marcus will hear of this, and he does not forgive those who rise where he expects them to fall." The city skyline glittered through the tall glass windows of Sophia's new suite. From here the streets below looked small, distant, just like the version of herself Marcus once tried to bury. On her desk sat a sealed leather folder stamped with the golden crest of Crown Holdings, Marcus's proudest jewel. Her assistant, a young man named Caleb, entered with cautious excitement. "It's official," he said, placing another stack of documents beside her. "The board approved everything. You're now the majority shareholder. Crown Holdings. It belongs to you." Sophia traced the embossed letters on the folder, her face unreadable. For years, Marcus had used this company as a weapon of pride, a throne he thought untouchable. Now with one signature, it was hers. Caleb hesitated. "Do you want me to make the announcement?" Sophia shook her head slowly. "No, not yet. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes silence is stronger. Let Marcus have his stage. When the curtain falls, the truth will speak louder than I ever could." She stood, walking to the window, watching the city lights blink like stars at her feet. Memories of betrayal flooded her mind. Marcus's cruel sneer, Victoria's mocking laughter, Daniel's rejection. Yet standing here she felt no need for revenge in words. Her revenge was already written in ink. Her phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. Marcus Bennett to host Gala, celebrating Carter Enterprises' dominance over Crown Holdings. Sophia smiled faintly, a calm, knowing smile. "Celebrate it while you can, Marcus," she murmured. "You'll soon learn you were bragging about what was never yours." She opened the folder, pulled out the deed of ownership, and pressed her seal onto the final page. The quiet thunk of the stamp echoed through the suite, a sound of destiny locking into place. Sophia's office was quiet that evening, the glow of the city casting long shadows across the glass walls. She sat at her desk reviewing contracts when her phone buzzed. The caller ID froze her for a moment. Daniel, her stepbrother. The same man who had turned his back on her when she begged for help. She let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was calm, measured. "Daniel?" On the other end, his voice cracked with false warmth. "Sophia, it's been too long. I need to see you. Things haven't gone as I expected with Marcus." Her pen stilled. She leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "You mean the man you chose over your own sister? The empire you traded family for?" Daniel stammered. "I was wrong. I thought Marcus was the future. But he's unraveling, Sophia. He's reckless. Investors are whispering. People are saying you—" He hesitated. "You're the one rebuilding everything now." The silence stretched. Sophia tapped her pen softly against the desk. "And now you want to come back? After betraying me when I needed you most?" He sighed heavily, desperation leaking into his tone. "Please, I was foolish. I just need a chance. I'm still your brother." Her eyes hardened, though her voice stayed calm. "No, Daniel. Brothers protect. Brothers stand when the world falls apart. You're just another man who sold loyalty for scraps. And there's no place for that in my life anymore." The line went quiet. Daniel's breath caught, but no words followed. Sophia ended the call, her face serene. For the first time, she didn't ache from his betrayal. She felt free of it. As she set the phone down, a notification pinged. Marcus's invitation to his grand gala. In bold letters. Celebrate our victory over Crown Holdings. Sophia's lips curved in a faint smile. The trap he thought he'd set for her was already a stage she was preparing to own. The city outside glittered with restless life. But inside Sophia's apartment, everything was still. The only sound was the delicate clink of a teacup as she set it on its saucer. Across from her sat Caleb, her loyal assistant, his voice low, his eyes alert. "They've sent the invitation," Caleb said, sliding the embossed card across the table. The golden letters gleamed under the lamp. "Marcus Bennett cordially invites you to the Gala of Triumph." Sophia studied it, her expression unreadable. "Triumph," she murmured, tasting the word as though it were bitter. Caleb leaned closer. "He thinks this gala will bury you. He wants the humiliation public. Final." Sophia picked up the card, turning it slowly in her hands. "That's what he doesn't understand. Silence isn't defeat. It's preparation." For a moment the room was silent again, the city noise muffled by the glass windows. Then Sophia reached into her drawer and pulled out the sealed ownership papers of Crown Holdings. She tapped them lightly against the table. "This isn't just an invitation," she said softly. "It's a stage. He wants me to be the shadow in the corner. Instead, I'll be the storm in the center." Caleb's eyes widened. "You're going to reveal it there? At his own gala?" Sophia's lips curved faintly. "Patience. Timing is everything. When he stands tallest, the fall will be greatest." The lamp cast long shadows across the walls. It felt as though the room itself was holding its breath, waiting. Sophia slid the papers back into the drawer and whispered, "Let him think he's won. For now, the night of the gala will not be his victory. It will be his undoing." The private lounge was drenched in velvet and gold. Marcus Bennett sat back in a deep chair, a crystal glass of golden liquor swirling in his hand. Across from him, Victoria Hayes reclined lazily, her smile sharp as a blade. The air was thick with arrogance and the scent of victory. Marcus lifted his glass. "Tomorrow is the night. I'll stand at that gala and finally bury her memory. Sophia will be nothing but a ghost the world laughs at." Victoria laughed softly, running her fingers along the rim of her glass. "She already is, Marcus. You broke her. She has no voice left. Tomorrow you only need to crush what's left of her pride." Marcus leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "And when I do, investors will see I'm untouchable. Carter Enterprises will rise higher than ever. They'll forget Sophia ever existed." Victoria tilted her head, a shadow of unease flickering for the first time. "Still, she's quiet. Too quiet. Don't you find it strange she hasn't fought back?" Marcus smirked, brushing off her doubt. "Silence means surrender. She's broken, Victoria. That's why you're here with me now, not her. She'll show up tomorrow because she's weak enough to think presence means dignity." Victoria leaned closer, lowering her voice. "And if she surprises you?" Marcus slammed his glass onto the table, liquor spilling. "She won't. Sophia Bennett is finished. And tomorrow, the world will see it." The velvet curtains shifted as a draft of air crept through the room, almost as though the walls themselves whispered warning. But Marcus only leaned back again, confident, blind to the storm waiting outside his golden bubble. Victoria's phone buzzed. A news alert flashed across the screen. Anonymous investors quietly shifting interest away from Carter Enterprises. She glanced at Marcus, but kept the screen hidden. Sophia stood before a long mirror, her reflection calm yet unshakable. The silk gown draped over her shoulders shimmered softly under the warm light, a symbol not of vanity, but of transformation. Tonight was not about beauty. It was about presence, silent power. Grace entered quietly, holding a small envelope. This came just now. From the investors. Sophia took it, breaking the seal carefully. Inside was a simple slip of paper, handwritten. "We stand with you. Reveal when the moment is right." No signatures, just solidarity cloaked in secrecy. Grace's eyes widened. "They know?" Sophia folded the note and tucked it into her clutch. "They don't just know. They're waiting. Marcus thinks he's the star tonight, but he doesn't realize the spotlight is shifting." Grace hesitated, watching her friend slip earrings into place. Sophia, what if he tries to humiliate you before you can act? Sophia's lips curved into the faintest smile. Let him. The louder the cruelty, the sweeter the silence that follows. I don't need to fight his words. I only need to reveal the truth when it matters. Downstairs, headlights flickered as a black-tinted car waited. The driver stepped out, holding the door open with a quiet bow. The city's hum was louder tonight, as if the streets themselves whispered anticipation. Grace touched Sophia's arm gently. Promise me one thing. Whatever happens, don't let his arrogance shake you. Sophia turned, her eyes calm yet burning with resolve. Grace, arrogance doesn't shake me anymore. It only reveals how fragile the arrogant truly are. As she stepped into the waiting car, her phone buzzed. A message lit the screen from an unknown number. Be careful tonight. Someone close to Marcus may betray him before you even have to. The entrance of the Grand Imperial Hotel blazed with light. Guests in glittering gowns and sharp suits streamed up the marble steps, cameras flashing like 1,000 tiny storms. At the top of the staircase stood Marcus Bennett, his arm linked with Victoria's, his pride swelling with every click of a shutter. Suddenly, a sleek black car rolled to a stop. The door opened slowly and Sophia stepped out. Her flowing gown shimmered under the lights, simple yet commanding. The crowd fell into a hush, whispers rippling instantly. Is that Sophia? One voice murmured. She looks different, stronger, another whispered. Marcus's smirk returned quickly. He tightened his grip on Victoria and raised his voice for all to hear. Ah, the ghost appears. How bold of you to come tonight, Sophia. I suppose even shadows crave attention sometimes. The crowd chuckled at his cruelty, cameras snapping furiously. But Sophia did not flinch. She walked steadily up the steps, her polished heels clicking like a quiet drumbeat, her silence cutting sharper than any reply. Victoria leaned in, whispering loudly enough for nearby guests to catch. She still thinks she belongs in our world. At the top, Marcus stepped forward, blocking her path with exaggerated courtesy. Welcome, Sophia. But remember, tonight isn't your stage, it's mine. Sophia lifted her gaze, calm and unbroken. Then shine while you can, Marcus, she said softly, her voice carrying just enough for those nearby to hear. Because when the lights shift, pride has a way of burning out. The whispers grew louder, guests exchanging uneasy glances. Some laughed nervously, but others sensed the tension in her words. As Marcus turned to lead Victoria inside, a photographer's flash caught Sophia squarely. The image of her standing tall against Marcus's sneer spread instantly across phones and feeds, seeding doubt before the gala had even begun. The ballroom glowed beneath crystal chandeliers, a sea of tuxedos and gowns moving in polished rhythm. Waiters weaved through the crowd with trays of champagne, while a string quartet played softly in the corner. At the center, Marcus Bennett basked in the attention, his laughter booming as he shook hands with wealthy investors. Sophia entered quietly, her presence like a ripple through calm water. Heads turned, conversations faltered. Some guests greeted her with polite nods, while others whispered behind their hands. Still, her composure never wavered. A businessman leaned toward another, murmuring, "She shouldn't be here. But look at her. There's something different." Another replied softly, "She looks more in control than Marcus." Marcus noticed the shifting attention. His smile stiffened. He raised his glass, his voice slicing through the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget why we're here tonight. To celebrate the power of Carter Enterprises and the triumphs that have made us unstoppable." The crowd clapped, though softer than before. Sophia stood at the edge of the room, clasping hands with one investor after another. Her voice was low, steady, almost invisible, but with every greeting, respect bloomed quietly. People leaned toward her, drawn to the stillness that carried more weight than Marcus's loud pride. Victoria caught the shift too. Her hand tightened on Marcus's arm. "They're looking at her," she hissed. "You need to draw them back." Marcus laughed too loudly, raising his voice again. "Don't waste your attention on ghosts, my friends. Shadows can't outshine the sun." But his words felt brittle, forced. The more he spoke, the more his arrogance cracked, While Sophia's silence filled the spaces his pride left hollow, a board member quietly excused himself from Marcus's circle and crossed the room to shake Sophia's hand. Cameras caught the moment, and whispers spread like fire. Why is the board showing her respect? The long banquet table glittered with silverware and crystal flutes, the centerpiece bursting with white roses. Guests settled into their seats, laughter rising like a steady tide. At the head sat Marcus Bennett, his posture tall, his pride swelling under the glow of the spotlight. Beside him, Victoria wore a smirk as sharp as her diamond necklace. Across the hall, Sophia was seated deliberately far from the head table. Marcus's designed to showcase her place. Yet distance did not weaken her. She sat straight, calm, her presence drawing quiet glances from investors nearby. Marcus lifted his glass, the crystal flute catching the light. "To new beginnings," he declared loudly, his voice aimed at Sophia more than anyone else. "To the future that leaves behind mistakes of the past." Laughter rippled across the table. Victoria leaned in, whispering just loud enough, "Did you see how she shrunk when you spoke? She can't stand the truth." But Sophia did not shrink. She lifted her own glass slowly, her movements graceful, deliberate. She raised it halfway, her gaze locking with Marcus's across the room. Her silence was louder than his toast. The investors near her exchanged looks. One whispered, "She doesn't look defeated. She looks like she's waiting." Marcus noticed, and his jaw tightened. He forced another laugh, louder this time. "Some people never learn when to walk away," he said, swirling his drink dramatically. "But tonight, they'll understand they don't belong here." Sophia finally sipped from her glass, unhurried, her eyes never leaving his. She didn't need words. Her defiance was in the stillness, in the way she refused to play his game. Just as Marcus leaned back, smug, one of the servers slipped a folded note onto his plate. He opened it under the table, his smirk faltering as he read the words, "She owns more than you think." After dinner, the ballroom shifted into casual mingling. Guests moved in clusters, glasses of champagne in hand, voices dropping into whispers. Marcus drifted among them, shaking hands, laughing too loudly, but his smile no longer carried the same confidence. The note he'd received still burned in his pocket. "She owns more than you think." Victoria tugged at his sleeve, her smile painted but her eyes unsettled. "Marcus, people are looking at her again. Investors who should be clinging to you are drifting toward Sophia. Why?" Marcus waved her off, though his laughter came forced. "They're curious, nothing more. She's a relic, Victoria, a broken piece of the past. I'll prove it before the night is done." Across the room, Sophia stood quietly with Grace at her side. She wasn't chasing attention, yet attention came to her. Subtle nods from businessmen, gentle smiles from investors. Even a board member once loyal to Marcus lingered at her side a little too long. One guest whispered behind a fan, "Strange, isn't it? She doesn't act defeated. She acts in control." Another nodded. "And Marcus? He looks nervous." Marcus's eyes darted to Sophia, catching her in a circle of quiet conversation. Their laughter was soft, respectful, not mocking. It rattled him more than outright defiance. His jaw tightened, his hand gripping his glass too hard. Victoria leaned closer, whispering sharply, "Marcus, you're losing them. Do something. Make the humiliation louder before she steals the room from you." His eyes darkened. "Don't worry. When the time comes, I'll make sure she remembers her place." Just then, a well-known investor approached Marcus, shaking his hand with a polite smile, but his words cut deep. "Impressive evening, Marcus. Though I must say, your ex-wife carries herself like someone who knows something we don't." The music dimmed. Lights brightened. All eyes turned to the stage as Marcus Bennett strode to the microphone, chest puffed out with arrogance. He held a leather-bound ledger in his hand, waving it for effect. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, "tonight marks the crowning of Carter Enterprises. Our triumph over Crown Holdings is complete. We stand unmatched, unchallenged, unstoppable." The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Marcus spread his arms wide, soaking in the glory. Then, from the back of the hall, a calm voice rang out, "Are you sure about that, Marcus?" The crowd fell silent. Heads turned. Sophia stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her presence commanding. She walked with quiet dignity until she stood at the edge of the platform. Marcus's smirk returned, but his eyes flickered uneasily. "Ah, Sophia, come to witness your final humiliation." Sophia didn't flinch. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a sealed folder. Slowly, deliberately, she opened it, revealing the stamped contracts. Her voice carried like steel wrapped in silk. "Crown Holdings does not belong to you, Marcus. It belongs to me. I am the majority shareholder. The board has recognized it, and these documents prove it." Gasps filled the room. The flashing of cameras grew frantic. Investors leaned forward, their eyes wide with shock. Marcus's face drained of color. "You're lying. This is a trick," he shouted, slamming the ledger onto the podium. Sophia stepped closer, her calm gaze slicing through his panic. "No, Marcus. The only trick here was your arrogance. You built this night to humiliate me, but all you've done is hand me the perfect stage to reveal the truth." The audience murmured, whispers rising like a tide. Some laughed in disbelief. Others shook their heads, stunned. A board member stood up from his seat, holding a copy of the same documents Sophia carried. His voice rang clear. "She's telling the truth. Sophia Bennett owns Crown Holdings. And Marcus, your era ends tonight." The ballroom crackled with shock. Guests whispered furiously, cameras snapped non-stop, and the once roaring applause for Marcus had collapsed into stunned silence. On stage, Sophia stood tall, the documents gleaming under the lights like a crown placed on her head. Marcus's hand shook as he pointed at her. "You can't do this. You don't have the right." Sophia lifted the stamped contracts high, her voice cutting through the chaos. "The right is already mine, Marcus. Signed, sealed, and recognized by the board. Tonight was supposed to be your triumph, but it has become my vindication." Gasps rippled across the hall. Investors surged forward, clapping, not for Marcus, but for Sophia. Board members who once sat silent now rose to their feet, their applause deliberate, echoing through the chamber. Victoria tugged at Marcus's arm, panic flashing in her eyes. "She's telling the truth. Everyone believes her." Sophia's gaze swept the room, calm and dignified. "This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. Arrogance may blind a man, but truth will always open the eyes of those who matter." The marble floor beneath her heels seemed to glow as she stepped forward, the spotlight following her. The documents stamped with her ownership were not just papers. They were the final chains breaking from her past. One investor approached, shaking her hand firmly. "Ms. Bennett, you've not only earned our respect, you've earned our trust." The crowd erupted, this time in applause for her. The same hall Marcus had planned as her grave of humiliation had become her platform of victory. Marcus staggered back, pale and sweating, as the microphone slipped from his grasp. His empire was crumbling before his eyes, and the woman he cast aside now stood as the one he could never surpass. The ballroom was in chaos. Reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Investors gathered around Sophia, shaking her hand, praising her composure. Cameras turned away from Marcus, who stood frozen near the podium, his pride collapsing like glass under a hammer. "Don't listen to her," Marcus shouted, his voice cracking. "She's lying. She tricked you all." But no one rallied to him. Board members who once cheered his every word now avoided his gaze. One of them stepped forward, his finger pointed directly at Marcus. "Enough, you've misled us for too long. Tonight, the truth has caught you." Marcus stumbled down from the stage, grabbing Victoria's wrist. "You'll stand with me, won't you? Tell them I'm still in control." Victoria pulled her arm free, her voice cold and sharp. "In control? You're finished, Marcus. I won't sink with you." Without another word, she turned and slipped into the crowd, her figure vanishing into the sea of glittering gowns. The humiliation was complete. His mistress had abandoned him. His investors had turned against him, and his empire was no longer his. Guards moved discreetly toward the stage as murmurs grew louder. "Fraud. Liar. Arrogant fool." Sophia watched from across the room, her face calm, her silence speaking louder than any insult could. She didn't need to mock him. His own downfall was the loudest humiliation of all. Marcus reached for Daniel, Sophia's stepbrother, who had been lurking near the edge of the crowd. "Daniel, help me! You owe me!" But Daniel stepped back, shame washing over his face. "No, Marcus, I owe nothing to you. Not anymore." The room closed in around Marcus. Alone, stripped of power, he looked like a shadow of the man who once boasted he was untouchable. As the guards placed a firm hand on his shoulder to escort him out, Marcus twisted to face Sophia. His voice, desperate and broken, rang out. "Sophia, please, don't let them take everything from me." The night was quiet now. The gala had ended. The crowd dispersed, and the city below pulsed with faint lights like scattered jewels. Sophia stood in her lofty suite, gazing out at the skyline. The same city that once mocked her now whispered her name with reverence. Behind her, Caleb placed a stack of newspapers on the table. Each headline bore her face. Sophia Bennett, the true power behind Crown Holdings. From betrayed wife to empire owner. Grace entered, smiling proudly. "You did it, Sophia, not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with strength no one can take away." Sophia turned, her voice calm, steady. "I didn't win tonight by shouting louder than Marcus. I won by standing taller in silence. Dignity is louder than cruelty." As if on cue, a knock rattled the door. Caleb opened it cautiously, and there stood Marcus Bennett. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes hollow, his arrogance completely gone. He dropped to his knees right there in the doorway, his voice trembling. "Sophia, I was wrong. I see it now. Without you I am nothing. Please, give me another chance. Don't leave me in the ashes." The room grew still. Grace's eyes narrowed, but Sophia's face remained serene. She stepped closer, looking down at the man who once cast her aside like dust. "Marcus," she said softly, "once you had my love. Then you chose betrayal, arrogance, and pride. Tonight you reap what you planted. I don't hate you. I pity you. But I will never go back." His shoulders slumped. The guards moved in to escort him away. The door shut, leaving silence in its wake. Sophia turned back to the window, her reflection glowing against the glass. The city stretched before her, vast and endless. She was no longer the woman humiliated, abandoned, or forgotten. She was restored, empowered, untouchable. Sometimes the cruelest betrayal births the strongest resilience. And sometimes, the one cast aside in humiliation rises higher than anyone ever imagined.